I hope what I've explained is clear enough. But if any of you have any questions about this, please ask.
Michael, there is a question here.
Yes, I see. I think Lorraine wants to ask.
There's one also which came quite early in the chat. About
okay.
So this is from Ron.
Yes.
And Ron is asking, he says, my question relates to the practice of Atma Vichara. Can you describe the mechanics of self-enquiry in tracing the source of the I thought? How do we know we are not just tracing a circle back to our own ego, I? Thank you.
Okay. Ego and I thought are synonyms. They're two ways of describing the same thing. There is only one I. That one I, in its pure condition, in its pure state, is our real nature. What ego or the thought called I is our real nature, that pure awareness, mixed and conflated with adjuncts. That is pure awareness is what is always shining in us as I am. But now we are not aware of ourselves just as I am. We're aware of ourselves as I am Ron or I am Michael. So long as we take ourselves to be something other than what we actually are, because the Ron or Michael or whatever the name is, it's a name of a body, of the name of a person. This person is not what we actually are, because this person appears in waking. In sleep, we take some other body to be ourselves. In dream, we take some other body to be ourselves. In sleep, we are not aware of anybody at all, but we continue to be aware of ourselves. So we now need to investigate this I. It doesn't matter whether you consider this I to be ego or your real nature, because there's only one thing there. Whether you, Bhagavan tells, we have seen a rope, but mistake it to be a snake. Bhagavan says, it's not a snake, it's just a rope. Look at it carefully and see. If we ask him, Bhagavan, are we to look at the snake or at the rope? He'll say, okay, look at the snake, because we are still taking them to be two different things. What you see is a snake, look at the snake, that's sufficient. All you need to do is investigate this snake. Now, all you need to do is investigate ego, because if we investigate ego, if we look at ego keenly enough, we will see that it is nothing but pure awareness, which is what we actually are. Just as if we look at the snake carefully enough, we'll see, oh, it's not a snake at all, it's just a rope. So the thing is, as I say, there's only one I. That is what we need to be attending to more and more keenly. Whether you say that one I is ego or I thought or whatever, it doesn't matter. Or whether you say it's your real nature, it doesn't matter. We all know I am. Who am I? What is this I? That is, we all know that we are. We don't know what we are. So how do we find out what we are? By attending to ourselves, by attending only to I. So long as we're looking at other things, we seem to be this body. So we need to stop looking at other things. We need to look at ourselves alone. So we need not worry about whether we're looking at ego or whether we're looking at. Bhagavan says, investigate the source of ego. The ego is this rising I, the I that rises as I in this body. What is the source from which it rises? It is ourself. It is I am. That is, from I am, we rise as I am Ron or I am Michael. Does that help to answer your question adequately, Ron, or do you want to ask anything more?
No, thank you, Michael.
Right.
Michael, there's another question which was, in fact, even earlier, and I missed it. This is from Katie, and she says that, does this mean that Shakti is ego? Because you're talking about Shakti, that is Shakti ego?
In this context, yes. That is, the reality is sometimes The reality is pure awareness. Pure awareness is sometimes described as Chit Shakti, the power of awareness. That is, the awareness and its power are not two different things. That if we misuse that power, we rise as ego and create all this world. That is Maya. If we cling to I am, we are thereby we have been misusing this power till now to create this world. When we cling to I am, we are surrendering this power back to its source. Then the power works, instead of working as Maya, it works as grace and draws us back into itself. So, in a sense, yes, that is, Bhagavan often said, Maya is nothing but mind or ego. So what he refers to as this Adiseya Shakti, this wonderful power, is the power of Maya, which is mind or ego. But there are not two powers, a power of grace and a power of Maya. There's only one power. So long as we are attending to anything other than ourselves, we are using that power, that Chit Shakti, that power of awareness, we're using that to create all this. If we turn that is Maya. If we use that same power by turning our attention back on ourselves, that is, attention is Chit Shakti, the power of awareness. When we turn that back to face ourselves alone, we are then using it correctly. So it functions as grace. So these are, these things can be explained in many, many different ways, but ultimately it all comes back to there is only one reality. And if at all there's a power, that power must exist in that reality, and it cannot be other than that reality. That power has now manifested as ego. That ego is what we now need to surrender back to its source. That is, Shakti needs to return and become one with Shiva. That is the significance of one of the forms of Shiva is Ardhanarishwara. That is, you see some pictures of Shiva as half male, half female, because the Shakti has merged back in her source. That is the state in which Shiva and Shakti are one. So often in this Murti Upasana, there's different names and forms of God. There's deep philosophical significance in them. And Ardhanarishwara is Aruṇācala because Shakti came to Aruṇācala in order to merge back into him. So, there are so many Puranic stories about all these things, but they all have deep significance. What is the merging of Shakti back into Shiva? That is when we turn our attention back towards ourselves and thereby merge back in our source. Some people will disagree with this and say, no, God, Shakti is a great goddess and everything. They will not be happy about us saying that. Well, it's not we who are saying it. It's Bhagavan who says mind is that Adiseya Shakti. Mind means ego. But this is the deep inner significance. But for people of less mature mind, all these stories are there to prepare them for deeper truths. That is, once they're familiar with these stories, when their minds become more mature, then they will be ready to see the deeper significance in all these stories and all this iconography. It all has deep significance. But it can be interpreted in different ways at different levels. Bhagavan gives us the very deepest interpretation. That is, generally, if you read about Maya as described in many Advaitic texts, it seems like Maya is something other than ourselves, some wonderful power in Brahman. And we have been created by that Maya. Bhagavan simplifies it. He said, no, you yourself are Maya. That is, you as ego yourself are Maya. If Maya Maya means ego, turns its attention back on itself, it merges back in its source. That is the oneness of Shiva and Shakti. That is Ardhanarishwara. Does that adequately answer your question, Katie?
She's on mute.
Okay. Yeah, as I say, there will be, if you go and ask Shaktas, Tantrikas, they will disagree with this and they'll give some other interpretation. But this is the interpretation according to Bhagavan's very, very simple, that Bhagavan boils everything down to a simple essence. And now
Sorry,
I see.
I've just realised I was on mute.
Yeah, no problem.
And it was the misuse of the power. Really
Yes.
does explain it to me
We're
very
always
well.
misusing the power. That's a problem.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was on mute.
Right. You were misusing the power.
Yeah.
So now we need to mute this ego in order to surrender the power back to its source.
I think, Michael, there are 2 questions with the raised hands, and then
Yes.
there are 2 on the chat.
Okay, I think David Gray, I think that's Lorraine you wanted to ask, isn't it? You're muted.
You kind of answered my question with the last answer. I was fascinated by the subject being the ego and the objects being the other subtle bodies, the will, the body, prana, intellect. Because last week I spoke about using willpower, and then I thought about it, and I was thinking about the willpower is kind of the beginning, and then you've got to surrender to get back to your ego, to get them back beyond the ego, from like the subject of this world to a sort of different dimension of I, the I beyond this reality that we understand.
The underlying reality.
Yes, but then you brought grace into it, which and Shakti, which I'll have to listen to this video again, because I think you explained it very well, but it's something that
I'm not sure if I did explain it very well, because it's a very deep and subtle subject. But actually, we generally think of grace and Maya as being 2 powers opposed to each other. But actually, there's only one power. The same power, but when we misuse it, functions as Maya. When we use it correctly by turning our attention back within to surrender ourselves back to the source, then we are using it as grace.
Right. Oh, that's so amazing.
But it's all our power. The power is all in our hands.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
But so long as we yield ourselves to the power of our vasanas, to our willpower, then we're in trouble. We need to yield ourselves back to the source from which we arose.
Right.
And we do that by turning our attention away from all phenomena, away from all objects, back towards the subject. Who am I?
Yes.
And when we turn our attention back towards the subject then merges back into its source. The snake merges back into the rope.
Right. So then we're beyond the duality of object-subject.
Yes. That is why Bhagavan says, so long as the world appears, our real nature doesn't appear, because our real nature is beyond subject and object. So long as we see a world, we are the subject, the world is an object.
Yes.
So we have to go beyond that duality.
Yes, thank you.
So how to go beyond that duality? We need to have a Dvaita meditation, a non-dual meditation. What is non-dual meditation? So long as there's all forms of meditation, there's a subject and an object. So they all involve that fundamental duality of subject and object. Only when the subject takes itself as the object, not literally, I mean, we can never be an object, but only when the subject, instead of looking at objects, looks at itself, then that is the Advaita meditation, where the subject is not looking at anything other than itself, it's looking at itself alone. So in self-investigation or self-attentiveness, we who are attending, we are both what are attending and what is attended to. And we have the attention that links them together, links the two, binds the two as one. So there's no duality only in self-attentiveness. So long as we attend to anything other than ourselves, there's duality. So how to go beyond duality? How to return to non-duality? Only by attending to ourselves.
Which is surrender, really.
Which is surrender. Because in order to attend to ourselves, we must be willing to let go of everything else. And if we let go of everything else and attend only to ourselves, ego is thereby dissolved. So when we fall asleep, we let go of everything. But because we know very well we're going to wake up the next morning. So we're very willing, when we're too tired to continue projecting this world, we're ready to let go of it all because we know it's going to come back again the next morning. But in self-investigation, it is a permanent, we are letting go permanently, because once ego is dissolved, none of this will ever appear again.
And that's the process. You just do it. It'll happen just for a few minutes, and it'll get longer and longer.
It is a process. It is a process because why is a process necessary? Because we still have Vishey vasanas. We still have strong inclinations to attend to other things. That is why we are not yet willing to surrender ourselves. Mm-hmm. We say, "Oh, I've surrendered to Bhagavan," but there's still an I but is surrendered to Bhagavan. We have it. That is, surrender becomes complete only when this I is completely dissolved in him. So why is our surrender not yet complete? Because we are not yet willing to let go. Because we still have strong inclinations to hold on to other things.
Right. Thank you very much.
So by this practice, we are weaning our mind off its Vishaya vasanas and cultivating the Sat vasana. That is, instead of having an inclination to go out, we're cultivating an inclination to go within. Mm-hmm. But that is a process, because it would be nice if we could give up all our Vishaya vasanas here and now, but we're not yet willing to do so. So we have to slowly wean ourselves off them. Mm-hmm. That is why the process is necessary.
And that'll happen at death, but we can make it happen before death if we.
It will happen at the death of ego. It won't happen at the death of body unless we cling to ourselves only, because when the body dies, vasana ego and vasana still remain. So it'll just project another body.
Right.
The death of the body is just like the ending of one dream, but it's not the ending of the underlying sleep. The underlying sleep is Maya or ego. That is what we need to get rid of. And that we can get rid of only by self-investigation.
Some people get born with less karma, or whatever you want to call it. So they've actually managed to get rid of some of that, the subtle bodies.
Well, an extremely rare case was Bhagavan. Mm-hmm. Bhagavan, in just a moment of self-investigation, he turned back and merged back into his source. When people talked about it afterwards, Bhagavan said, whatever work was necessary was already completed in previous lives. So whatever was not quite completed, that was completed in this life. So all the work that had to be done had almost been completed. But for a divine purpose, he was born again in order for his body and mind to be used by Aruṇācala as its vehicle for revealing the teachings, revealing the teachings of Advaita in the purest and simplest form and most practical. That's the most important thing. The great treasure that Bhagavan has brought us. He has clarified he's not only simplified the whole Advaita philosophy, that he's not only reduced it back to pure and simple essence, but he's also, in doing so, he's made the practice very clear. Lorraine, have I adequately answered your question?
Sorry, unmute. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm going to listen to that and dwell on it. It's fantastic. Okay. Thank you very much.
Actually, Michael?
Yes.
Sorry,
Yes.
the hand up is also mine.
Okay.
There's David.
Yes.
I was just getting a bit slightly confused, and I need your guidance. In the little "Who am I?" the teachings of Bhagavan, there was about 20 odd points 20 odd verses on which you commented. One of which was, what is the means for constantly holding on to the I thought? Who am I? If you
Yes.
remember that. And in the little booklet which I've got, which I'm now practicing urgently, having moved on from a different source of meditation,
Mm.
you say the question, to whom has this thought arisen?
Mm.
Quite simply, the answer would emerge to be, to me.
Mm.
Thereupon, if one inquires, who am I, the mind will go back to its source.
Yes.
That I'm sort of clinging on to voraciously.
Right.
Because in your book, in another book, which I think you were concerned with, there's a lot of other guidance about looking out the window and seeing things, and not I, I'm not that. And it just seemed to be very, very complex, a different thing to sort of get onto.
I don't think that was me. I don't think that was me.
Oh, wasn't it? Oh, well, I'm pleased to hear that. Because this, in the little book, number 11, it's
Yes.
very clear, and it's so easy
Yes,
to
that is
rest on it, you know.
Bhagavan has given us a because the version you're talking about, that's the question and answer version.
Yes.
The version I'm talking about is the essay version. Bhagavan himself rewrote the questions and answers as an essay. So that portion comes in the 6th paragraph, which I'll be talking about. Well, the next meeting will be on the 5th paragraph. And then after that, the 6th paragraph, that'll be at the beginning of May, I'll be talking about that. That clue Bhagavan gives us there is a very, very powerful clue. That is, it's often misinterpreted. If you ask to whom, the answer will be to me. And then if you ask who am I, it's not about asking. What Bhagavan says is, if you investigate, the verb he uses is vichari, which means to investigate. If you investigate, that is, if other thoughts rise, if one keenly investigates, to whom is this? To whom has it appeared? It will be clear to me.
Yes.
So that is a very powerful way of turning our attention back towards ourselves, because whatever appears, when Bhagavan says if thoughts appear, he means if anything appears, because according to Bhagavan, everything other than ourselves is a thought.
Yes.
So when we become aware of any perception, any memory, any thought, any feeling, anything, to whom does this appear? To me. So that is, he's pointing us there. It's not that we have to ask the question. He's expressed it in those terms to indicate to where should we turn our attention. It doesn't matter what appears.
Yes.
What matters is, to whom does it appear? It appears to me. So whatever may appear, we have to turn our attention back to ourselves. And to the extent that we turn our attention back to ourselves, ego thereby subsides and merges into its source.
Yes, I found it excessively helpful and easy as well.
It is. It's so easy. People complicate this unnecessarily. It is so easy.
Yes.
All we have to do, that is, what is self-investigation? Bhagavan says in the 16th paragraph, the name Atma Vichara refers only to the practice of keeping the mind always fixed in oneself. What does it mean, always fixed in oneself? Always keeping our attention fixed on I am. And if anything else appears, that means our attention has gone away from ourselves.
Yes.
So whatever has appeared, to whom has it appeared? To me. Nothing can appear without one to whom it appears. So
Absolutely.
to whom does it appear? Only to me. So I turn my attention back to myself. So this is such a simple and such a valuable clue Bhagavan has given us.
Yes.
But some people don't get it, but it is actually, if we think carefully about it, what Bhagavan is saying there, it is such a simple and such a powerful clue. We can apply it in any situation in life, because
Yes.
whatever experience we are undergoing, To whom is this experience? To me.
Absolutely.
And we turn our attention back to ourselves.
It can deal with absolutely everything that comes.
Literally everything, because everything appears only to us.
Yes, indeed. Okay, well, but thank you for that.
I mean, I can't express in words what a great treasure Bhagavan has given us in such simple words.
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
So we don't have to worry about looking out of the window and trees and forests and anything else. People complicate it.
Thank you for freeing me from that. I think it's marvelous.
Right. The whole point of Bhagavan's teachings is we need not attend to anything other than ourselves. If we attend to ourselves, that is sufficient. Everything else is being taken care of by God. That's why we can leave. Bhagavan says in the 13th paragraph, we need to attend to ourselves so keenly that we give no room to the rising of any other thoughts. That means no room for our attention to go away from ourselves towards anything else. That is,
everything comes to us.
Yes.
Whatever the thought is, the
Yes.
state of the world, the universe,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it comes in here, which is fantastic.
Exactly.
Yes.
So Bhagavan says, by attending to ourselves so keenly that we give no room to the rising of anything else, that is giving ourselves to God. And then in the next sentence, he says, however much burden we place on God, he will bear all of it. So even whatever concern we may have about anything in the world, about what bills we have to pay or what problems life throws so many problems at us. We can leave all those problems to Bhagavan. All we need to do is hold on to I am.
Yes. Thank you very much.
To whom do all these problems appear? To me.
Yeah. Otherwise, we wouldn't know they're there.
Yes, exactly. If we weren't there, there'd be no problems. So what is the root of all problems? We are the root of all problems.
Absolutely.
What is the solution to all problems? We are the solution. The problems appear because we look away from ourselves. The solution is to look back at ourselves. So simple.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank
Right,
you.
right.
Okay. I'll mute myself, I think.
Right.
Okay.
And then, Alex, would you like to ask your question?
Hello, Mr. James. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Greetings, everybody. You talked about sheets, so I have a question about that. Usually, awareness is of the nature of Satchitananda, and self-inquiry is sometimes described as abiding in the bliss of the self, right?
Yes.
And same time in yoga, yoga says that body has 5 sheets. One of it is the Ananda kosha, right? The bliss sheet.
Yes.
And usually practitioners are warned against having blissful experiences.
Yes.
What is the difference between the bliss of the self and this blissful experience during meditation? How can we, differentiate, if it's possible at all, whether it's indeed the bliss of the self or it's an experience of some sort of practice?
The Anandamaya kosha is the kosha means it's a sheath. Sheath means it's something other than ourselves. The reason it's called Anandamaya kosha, the Anandamaya kosha is the will. That's all the vasanas. What constitutes the Anandamaya kosha? All the vasanas. Why is it called Anandamaya kosha? Because vasanas are all. Vasanas means our inclination, right?
Right.
All inclinations, they're the seed form of desires. Desires are for what? What is it that drives all desires? What is the one fundamental thing we all desire? We desire to be happy. So that is, Bhagavan says in the very first paragraph of Nāṇ Ār, Priyataku Sukhame Karanamadalam. Happiness alone is the cause for love. That is, whatever desire we have, why do we desire it? we desire things because we think we're going to get happiness from them. So it's because of that association of desire and happiness that the will, all our vasanas are called the Anandamaya kosha. They consist of our love for happiness, you can say. But that is a kosha. That is all our vasanas. They belong to us, but they are not us. That is, ego is the subtlest of all the 5 sheaves is the Anandamaya kosha. But even the Anandamaya kosha is not ego. Ego is that which identifies itself with all these 5 sheaves. I am this body, I am sitting, I am walking, I'm running. We identify ourselves with the physical body. I'm breathing, I'm alive. We identify ourselves with the pranamaya kosha. I am seeing, I am remembering, I'm hearing, I'm thinking. We are identifying ourselves with the manamaya kosha. I'm judging, I'm thinking, I'm reasoning. We are identifying ourselves with the vijnanamaya kosha. I like this, I dislike that. We are identifying ourselves with the Anandamaya kosha. So we identify ourselves with these things, but none of these things are ourselves. We are that which has identified ourselves with it. That which has identified ourselves with these is not even what we actually are, it is ego. But ego is what we need to investigate. When we investigate ego, ego is a mixture of awareness and adjuncts. Awareness, in its pure form, is just I am. When it is mixed with adjuncts, we are now aware of ourselves as I am Alex or I am Michael. This is the adjunct mixed form of awareness. So we need to extract the I am from this adjunct mixed awareness. In other words, we need to attend only to I am. And the more we attend to I am, more everything else will drop off. Because the more we attend to I am, the less we are attending to anything else. And the less we attend to other things, the more they drop off. So all we have to attend to is ourself. Regarding happiness, happiness is our real nature. Whatever happiness we seem to derive from other things, we derive because our desire for those other things, when it's satisfied, our mind is temporarily calmed down. The agitation caused by the desire is calmed down. The happiness that is within us is experienced. So happiness lies only within us. But when we are following this path of self-investigation, we are not looking for anything new. We are not looking for anything that we do not experience already. What is the one thing that we are always aware of? Aware of not only in waking, not only in dream, but in all the 3 states, in waking, dream, and sleep. The one thing that we are always aware of is I am. So that is what we need to cling to. And that is not anything new, but we're going to, it's not, as Bhagavan said, the jnana, if jnana were a new knowledge to be attained, it would be lost, because whatever comes has to go. But what we are seeking is that which is ever known, ever clearly shining. That is only I am. So we can forget about happiness and all these things. I mean, all these, our sole aim is to know who am I. If we know who am I, then we experience infinite happiness. But we shouldn't be seeking, we are not seeking experiences. You were asking about experiences. Experiences exist for the experiencer. So whatever experience may arise, to whom is this experience? To me. So we are investigating the reality of the experiencer. So we shouldn't allow ourselves to be distracted by any experience. That is, while following the spiritual path, we may get all sorts of experiences. We may get divine visions or experiences of ecstasy or whatever. These are all things that appear to whom? To me. So we need to be constantly turning our attention and going deeper and deeper and deeper within. So we are not looking for any experience. We are looking for the reality of the experiencer. The reality of the experiencer is just I am. It's not something unknown to us, but because we now experience that I am mixed with adjuncts, though we are aware that we are not aware of what we are, because we mistake ourselves to be something else. So we just need to cling just to I am. And don't allow yourself to be distracted by any experience, however blissful it may be.
So, but you see, if let's say ego subsides and there is no I which experiences this, just there is no more thought of you being individual self.
Yes.
There is left this feeling of presence, which I think is I am.
Yes,
So
yes.
you are referring that and usually this experience is quite pleasant or blissful, however you can call it. So if there is no subject, I which experience something which is bliss, then this is the bliss of the self.
Yes, but we should be, so long as it's something that we come out of and we can talk about afterwards, it is not, we still haven't experienced I am in its pure condition. We need to go deeper and deeper and deeper until we are completely lost, until we are drowned in I am, until nothing other than I am remains. In which there's no mind to be able to, no mind ever rise again to be able to describe, oh, this was a very blissful experience.
Well, thank you very much.
That is, we have to go beyond the experiencer to the reality that underlies the experiencer. That is the pure awareness. Awareness that is never aware of anything other than itself, and that is eternally immutable, never undergoes any change whatsoever. As Bhagavan says, what is it to know ourselves? He says in verse 20 of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, he says, Unadal Khan, becoming food is seeing. That's a way of saying we will know what we actually are only when we are completely swallowed. When we as ego have lost ourselves completely, drowned in the ocean of pure awareness, that alone is real seeing.
Oh yeah, but this like the end point, self-realization, complete self-realization.
That is what we're aiming for. We shouldn't stop it. We shouldn't let anything else distract us on the way. That is what we're aiming for. And that is here and now. It's ever present. It's ever available to us. The only thing we must be willing to let go of everything else.
Yes, that's true. Thank you very much. I think you answered.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. The next person with the hand up is Kiran. Would you like to ask your question now?
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Yeah. So I've been reading Sadhu Om's the path of Sri Ramana.
Yes.
He's made it extremely clear and simple as to what the practice of self-investigation is and how we need to do it.
Yes.
I've completed the first part, and now I'm currently reading the second part, and I've come across something that I'm stuck on and I need your help on.
Yes.
So on page 184, Sadhu Om talks about knowledge and ignorance.
Yes.
Basically, he says knowing a thing or not knowing a thing is not the nature of the self.
Yes.
Again, it's basically in accordance with what Sri Bhagavan mentions in 40 verses,
Yes.
Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu 10, 11, and 12.
Yes.
So he says something like this, it is important that we should not forget the fact that Sri Bhagavan Ramana once revealed an even a subtler secret. It is, and that this is what he says, it is not only that the self does not know other things, but also does not know even itself. I don't know what this means.
Okay. This is, as he said, this is a very deep and subtle point. That is what Bhagavan what Bhagavan meant when he said that, what we take to be knowing is knowing of things other than ourselves, knowing objects. But how does our real nature, what we actually are, how does it know itself? It knows itself just by being itself. As he says in verse 26 of Upadesh Undya, Tanai iritale, tanai aridalam. Knowing oneself being oneself alone is knowing oneself, because oneself is not two. So when we know anything other than ourselves, there is a movement from ourselves to that other thing. That our attention must move from ourselves to that other thing. So all other forms of knowing are acts of knowing. But we know ourselves not by any act of knowing, but just by being ourselves. That is, we all know I am. Whether we attend to I am or not, that knowledge I am, that awareness I am, is ever present. Because we don't need to attend to I am to know I am. But we do need to attend to I am to know what we are. Because the problem is, now because we allow our attention to go towards other things, we mistake ourselves to be something other than what we actually are. So in order to remove this false awareness, I am this body, I am this person, we need to turn our attention back to ourselves. When we turn our attention back to ourselves, we then might merge back into our source, which is that fundamental awareness I am. And then we know ourselves just by being ourselves. That is, to put it another way, what we actually are is pure awareness. How does pure awareness know itself? It doesn't know any objects. Because if we're aware of objects, that is not pure awareness. Pure awareness means awareness devoid of objects. So how does pure awareness know itself? Just by being itself. Because its very nature is awareness. That is why it's called Swayam Prakasha. It's self-shining. It knows itself by its own light, by just being itself. So that is what Bhagavan means there. It is a knowledge beyond any type of knowledge with which we are now familiar. Because what we take as knowledge now is the knowing of things other than ourselves. That is why, from the perspective of ego in waking and dream, sleep seems to be a state of darkness. It is not actually a state of darkness. As Bhagavan says, it's a state of, to put it in metaphorical terms, it's a state of blazing light. But from the perspective of ego, because there are no objects there to know, there's nothing to know, no thing to be known, it seems to be a state devoid of knowledge. Whereas according to Bhagavan, it's a state of full, perfect knowledge. But it's not a knowledge of knowing something, it's a knowledge which entails just being what we actually are. So basically what Bhagavan was indicating there is that the type of knowing is something beyond the grasp of ego. As ego, we can never know ourselves as we actually are. As ego, we will always know ourselves as I am this or I am that. But the perfect knowledge of ourselves is just I am I.
So the very fact that we say that we know something or we don't know something is itself ignorance.
Yes, that's why Bhagavan says in verse 32 or 33, I think, of Uḷḷadu Nāṛpadu, saying I have known myself or I have not known myself is ground for ridicule. Wait a second. Verse 33. What he says there is, saying I do not know myself or I have known myself is ground for ridicule. Why? To make oneself an object are there two selves. So we can never know ourselves as an object. So the knowing of ourselves is quite unlike any other knowing. And then he concludes by saying, because being one is the truth, the experience of everyone. We're all aware of ourselves as I am one. Then how can we know ourselves as an object? Because to know ourselves as an object, there then has to be two selves, a knowing self and a known self. There are no two selves. So there is never a moment when we do not know ourselves. The problem is, on top of this knowledge I am, we have superimposed this knowledge of adjuncts and we've conflated them. So instead of knowing ourselves as just as I am, we know ourselves as I am Kieran or I am Michael.
Yeah, yes, Michael, it's clear. I just have one other question, if that's okay.
Yes.
In relation to what you explained today and what, Bhagavan says, I cannot stand by itself.
Yes.
Right?
Well,
it can
the
only
ego
stand.
cannot stand by itself.
Correct.
Yeah.
I as
Ego,
an ego.
mind.
The first thought, which means I means I'm talking about myself. I cannot stand by myself unless I cling to other things, right?
Yes.
And which means if I just wean my attention from all the second and third persons, which means all the thoughts apart from myself,
Yes.
I has to subside.
Exactly.
But there's a confusion that we do that in sleep also, right?
Yes.
But it doesn't subside then. I mean to say it is not destroyed then.
Right. There is a reason for this. That is, what we experience in sleep is just pure awareness. But what brings about that experience of pure awareness? We fall asleep because we're too tired to continue projecting. So because of tiredness, we subside. And as a result of our subsidence, pure awareness alone remains. But ego is not experiencing itself as pure awareness because the pure awareness shines forth only after the subsidence of ego. And ego has subsided because of tiredness. That is why ego is not destroyed in sleep. How can ego be destroyed in sleep when it's not present there? If you want to execute, if someone is convicted of murder and they're sentenced to death, you can carry out that sentence. You can execute them only if they're present. If they do a runner and they're no longer available, you can't execute them. So likewise, in sleep, ego does a runner. It's no longer available, so it can't be killed. No pure awareness shines in sleep. There's no ego there to be destroyed. So in the waking and dream state, when ego is present, ego needs to experience itself as pure awareness. When we turn our attention back towards ourselves, our aim is to turn our attention a full 180 degrees. So long as there's this slightest awareness of anything other than ourselves, we still haven't turned 180 degrees. We may have turned 170 degrees or 179 degrees or 179.999 degrees. But so long as there's even the slightest lingering of awareness of anything other than ourselves, we haven't yet turned the full 180 degrees. As soon as we turn the full 180 degrees, we cease to be aware of anything else whatsoever. That is the state of pure awareness. So that is the point at which ego experiences itself as pure awareness. But as soon as ego experiences itself as pure awareness, it ceases to be ego. Because ego is not pure awareness, ego is the adjunct mixed awareness. So the annihilation of ego is brought about by ego seeing itself as it actually is. When it sees itself as it actually is, it's no longer ego, it is what it actually is.
So basically, when you say ego needs to see itself, ego needs to see from where it rises, and that's when it's automatically.
From where it rises, from where do we rise as ego? We only rise from ourselves. Yeah. They're not two different things.
Yes, Michael. Yeah,
that is what is the source of the snake? The source of the snake is the rope. Are the rope and snake two different things? No, they're one and the same thing. So if you want to find out where the snake has appeared from, look at it very carefully. You see it's appeared only from a rope.
That's why there's only one eye.
Yeah, there's only, yes.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you.
Is that clear? That is, in sleep, the experience of pure awareness results from the subsidence of ego. In jnana, in manonasa, in the destruction of mind, the subsidence of ego results from knowing the pure awareness. That is a matter of which is the cart and which is the horse. If the ego subsides first and then pure awareness shines forth, ego escapes. It's not harmed. But if before the ego subsides, if it experiences itself as pure awareness, it is thereby its subsidence is thereby brought about by pure awareness, and thereby its subsidence is permanent. It is a permanent dissolution or manonasa.
Yeah, basically a conscious effort in seeing what we actually are, and that's when it's restored.
Yeah, yes. Well, there's always consciousness. It's a matter of where we are directing our consciousness.
Yeah, I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah, we have to direct our consciousness, our attention back towards ourselves.
Yes, Michael. Yeah.
We have to see ourselves.
Yes, Michael. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. And then Ishwaran and Rama.
Michael, sorry. Just before Ishwan and Rama, there were a couple of questions which came in about an hour ago.
Yeah, yes, certainly.
So the first is from Arvind Nair, and he says, the question, who am I, yields no answers, and there is a temporary silence in the mind of other thoughts. The mind is devoid of other thoughts. But soon enough, other thoughts arise. How can I remain close to the source of all thoughts for an extended period of time?
The question, who am I, is a pointer. The practice is not the question, who am I, it's the investigation, who am I. We need to investigate what we are. Bhagavan never said, ask the question, who am I? He said, investigate, who am I? In some translations, it's wrongly implied that Bhagavan says, ask, who am I? But that isn't actually what Bhagavan meant. What he meant is investigate, who am I? What does it mean to investigate, who am I? If I give you a book and say to you, investigate what's written in it, you don't just sit there and say, what is written in this book? What is written in this book? Obviously, you're not going to find out what's written. If you want to know what's written in the book, you have to open it and read it. Likewise, in order to investigate who am I, we need to turn our attention within to look at ourselves alone. Because it's not a question, there is no answer. If we take the investigation metaphorically to be a question, the metaphorical answer is the dissolution of ourself, the annihilation of ego. That is, what we are investigating is, who am I? What is this I? What is this I? It is nothing. Now we are experiencing this I mixed with adjuncts as I am so-and-so, I'm such and such a person. That is, I am mixed with adjuncts. Whereas what we actually are is the pure I am, devoid of adjuncts. So we need to turn our attention away from all phenomena, everything other than ourselves, and attend only to I am. The more we attend to I am, the more ego thereby subsides. So we shouldn't be waiting for something to happen. Nothing is going to happen. If anything happens, that's a distraction. Because all happenings are things other than ourselves. So we're not looking for something to happen. We are looking for that which is ever present. What is it we're investigating? We're investigating being, our own being. So how do we investigate being? Just by being. So we shouldn't be expecting anything to happen. That is, the cessation of all happiness, the cessation of all happenings is our goal. Happenings happen only in the view of ego. So if anything happens, to whom does it happen? To me. We turn our attention back towards ourselves. So it's not a matter of questioning who am I or waiting for an answer. It's a matter of investigating who am I, to see what we actually are, to be aware of ourselves as we actually are. Does that answer help to clarify? I don't know who asked this question.
Yes, Michael, that answers the question. Thank you.
Okay, right.
And there is another one, Michael, which says that I'm very agitated by the strength of my clinging to the world. For example, the feeling that people have treated me unfairly. So much so that I have to point to prove. So much so that I have a point to prove to the world. So what he's saying is that I'm very agitated by the strength of my clinging to the world. For example, the people that have treated me unfairly, so much so that I have a point to prove to the world. I can see how strong my resistance is to taking this world as a dream because of these feelings. What should I do? I want to be quiet, to patiently and persistently do Atma Vichara, to be indifferent to this world. But the clinging is just too strong, and the situation seems hopeless because my mind doesn't want to accept that this is just a dream.
Right. Okay. So the problem is with the mind, with the person that we seem to be. It's this person who has been treated unfairly and who has a point to prove. But are we this person? That's the whole purpose of this self-investigation. We are trying to find out what we actually are. We are trying to separate ourselves from this person we seem to be. That is, the person we seem to be is full of so many defects. So long as I think I'm Michael, Michael is a bundle of defects. But why should I take myself to be Michael? In sleep, I'm perfectly content without Michael. So why should I now take myself to be Michael? So all the problems we face, all the attachments and everything, they belong to this person that we seem to be. We are something separate from that. We are foolishly identify ourselves with that and get ourselves into trouble. But I am not Michael. Who am I? That is what we're investigating. We are trying to go we're trying to go beneath this person we seem to be is something on the surface. We are trying to go deep within. So all the problems are there only on the surface. If a nice analogy Sadhu sometimes used to give, if you've been asked to dive into the ocean to retrieve a pearl, and you say, okay, I will dive into the ocean, but first let all the waves subside. You'll never dive in the ocean because the waves, the nature of the surface of the ocean is to be always, waves are the very nature of the surface of the ocean. So what do we have to do? If we dive within, we dive below the waves. Then we're no longer affected by the waves. So we shouldn't be waiting for, the mind is imperfect. If we wait for mind to become perfect, then we'll be waiting for all eternity. There'll be no end to it. So the nature of a mind is to waver. The nature of a mind is to have attachment. The nature of a mind is to take the world to be real. That's why we want to dive deep within, to dive below this surface mind, to find what underlies this mind, what is real. So it is true. That is what the problem you're describing is, in its seed form, it is what is called Vishey Asanas. That is, we have so much inclination to attend to this world. We may attribute our inclination to attend to this world to something like, oh, because the world has treated me unfairly, I want to prove my point. But that is, those are more superficial. Underlying that, whether the world has treated us fairly or unfairly, we still have an inclination to attend to this world. That is the problem. So what do we need to do? We need to we need to let go of all these ideas, but this is a problem or that is a problem. The problem is our rising as ego. So we have a problem. We have a solution to the problem. We need to cling to ourselves. The more we cling to ourselves, the more our inclination to be concerned about the world will subside. Okay, the world's treated us unfairly. Big deal. How long is this life? We're in this world for maybe maximum maybe 100 years. For most of us, it won't even be 100 years. This is a very, very brief dream we are undergoing. Let the people in our dream treat us fairly or unfairly. Why should we be concerned about it? What we want is eternal happiness. So are we going to sacrifice eternal happiness just because we're afraid that a few dogs are barking at us? We have to ignore the barking dogs. That is, let the whole world bark at us. Our aim is to go back within. So let us not be concerned about these things. I'm not saying it's easy, because we all have strong Vishey Asanas. We all have to work hard to wean our mind off its Vishey Asanas. We have to work hard, but it's the work we are doing. It's not really a work. It's just a state of being, but it seems to be a work. That turning our attention back to ourselves and clinging to ourselves. Metaphorically, I refer to that as work. Why? That is more worthwhile than any other work we have ever done, because this is the work that will yield the eternal happiness that we actually are. So none of us are perfect. As Bhagavan said in the 10th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, he says, however great a sinner one may be, if instead of lamenting and weeping, I am a sinner, how am I going to be saved? One completely rejects the thought that one is a sinner and is steadfast in self-attentiveness, one will certainly be reformed or transformed or saved. So that there he's used the word sinner, but we can substitute that word sinner with any other word. Oh, I'm such a hopeless case. Oh, I've got such strong attachments. Oh, I'm such an imperfect person. Oh, the world has treated me so badly. Give up. Stop thinking like that. Stop thinking of ourselves as being ill-treated or being... What we need to do is to cling firmly to self-attentiveness. Yes, we will fail many times. So many times our vasanas will drag us out again. How can we succeed in this? By persevering. However many times we fail, try again. Try again. A small child, when it's learning to walk, falls so many times. No child can just get up and walk on its two legs. It takes, most of us don't learn to walk till we're 1 or 1.5 or so. Before that, so many times we've tried to stand up and we toddle and everything. But does any child ever give up? No, however many times the child falls down, it gets up again and tries again. So we have to have such a singleness of purpose, such dedication to this practice. Because why? Because this alone will yield eternal and infinite happiness. Nothing else can. This is the only way. So rather than wallowing in our... We are all imperfect. We are all... why we have come to this spiritual path? Because we're imperfect. If we were perfect, no spiritual path would be necessary. So let us not wallow in our own imperfections and our own lamenting, oh, I'm such a sinner, or I've got so much attachment to this world, or I'm so weak, how can I succeed in this? I'm too weak. Let's give up all thoughts about our lack of qualification. Let us cling to what is real. Because eventually we will find that we are infinitely powerful. Now we seem to be very weak. because we've risen as ego, but our real nature is infinitely powerful. So let us cling to ourselves and discover the power that lies within us. Does this adequately answer your question?
Yeah, Michael, there's just before we go to the hands, to the raised hands, there was one related question from Marie, who also has her hand raised.
Okay.
Marie, did you want to ask? It was about the vasanas. Marie, did you want to ask the question, or do you want me to?
Yeah, maybe to ask it. So when we have those vasanas coming up,
yes,
that pull the attention away from the self,
yes,
is it useful to use self-enquiry to say who is being pulled and to whom are these distractions coming?
That is our aim is to turn our attention back to ourselves. So any way that is helpful to turn us, that is, yes, to whom are these distractions? To me. Who am I? That is, we don't actually have to ask those questions, but sometimes if it helps us to ask the question, by all means ask them. But self-investigation is only the clinging to self-attentiveness, being self-attentive, that alone is self-investigation. But if asking questions or any type of reasoning, I mean, sometimes we have, when we find our mind is getting dragged away too much, we sometimes have to reason with ourselves. Why should we worry about all these things? Why should we be concerned about these things? Anything that helps us to turn our attention back to ourselves is good. But it is not self-investigation, it's an aid to self-investigation. Self-investigation is nothing but clinging to I am, clinging to self-attentiveness. Is that an adequate answer?
Yes, because sometimes it feels like it's mechanical, like it's just asking, and sometimes
that's why I say that asking is not self-investigation. We can use, if it's helpful, we can sometimes ask questions in order to help us, but merely asking questions, we can go on saying, who am I, to whom is this, or when is the next thought coming so I can pop this question, to whom is this thought? It's not about questioning, it's about investigating. And we investigate ourselves by turning our attention away from ourselves. I mean, turning our attention back to ourselves, and thereby away from everything else. Anything that any type of manana, any type of reflection, whether it's in the form of questions or in the form of reasoning, anything that helps us to turn our attention back towards ourselves is good. But self-investigation is only the turning of our attention back towards ourselves. And it cannot become mechanical. It cannot become mechanical. It requires the greatest love. To cling to ourselves requires the greatest love. So that it's anything but mechanical. That is, the more we attend to ourselves, the more we will be drawn to this. It is because it's such a relief from everything else. When, to the extent we cling to ourselves, we are letting go of everything else. And to the extent we let go of everything else, we are thereby relieved from everything else. So this is, if we are practicing this properly, it cannot possibly become mechanical. Because it's not, in other types of meditation, if you're asked to meditate on some object, whether some chakra in the body or some name or form of God or something, you can mechanically do that. But this we cannot do mechanically. Without great love, we will not attend to ourselves. And the more we attend to ourselves, the more we subside. Does that help, Marie?
Yes. It's like you have to walk this path yourself.
We have to, yes. No one can walk it for us. Who wants to go home? We want to go home. So who has to walk home? We have to walk home.
Thank you.
Right. And then Ishwaran and Rama.
Michaelji, namaskaram. We are fairly new to this satsang.
Yes.
But we've been listening to some of the recordings from before. One thing, I have a question, and I also want to share something that about free will. You had gone into great detail explaining what free will is, And after listening to many, many Mahatmas, I finally now understand what free will is, which is nothing but I can wish for anything to happen, but it's not necessarily going to happen.
Yes.
And my free will is only limited to wishing what I wanted to happen, nothing else.
Yes.
Beyond that. It is such a simple thing, but it took me so long to come to that. Only after listening to you, I fully understood. I came a full circle, I think.
Yes. The problem with the English term free will is it's a very vague term. And generally when people talk about free will, they are not talking about freedom of will. They're talking about freedom of action, freedom to do what we want. So Bhagavan talked about two things. He talked about Ichcha Svatantra, which is the freedom to want whatever we want, and Kriya Svatantra, which is the freedom to do what we want. But generally he talked about the two together, because if you don't have freedom to want what you want, having freedom to do what you want would be meaningless. If you were forced to want something, doing what you want would not be a real freedom. So our will is independent. That is, no one can make us want what we don't want, or make us or stop us wanting what we do want. But the only limitation on our freedom of will is that we want many things which are contradictory to one another. We want liberation, but we still want to continue our present identity as I am this person, this is my life and everything. So, I mean, that's just one example. There are so many things. We know that eating chocolate is bad. If eating too much chocolate is bad for our health, but we have a liking to eat too much chocolate. So we are torn between the liking on one hand to protect our health and not to overeat, and on the other hand, the liking to eat more. So there's so many things like this. Our will is pulling us in so many different directions, because the will consists of vasanas, which are pulling us in so many different directions. So the only limitation on our freedom of will is not an external limitation, it's an internal limitation. That is, it's the conflicts within our own will. That is the problem. Now, once we start on this spiritual path, having understood Bhagavan's teachings, we know we should return. If we want to be truly happy, we should turn our attention within. We should stop attending to other things. We should attend only to ourselves. So we have a liking to attend to ourselves, but we still have a strong liking to attend to other things. So a battle is going on in our will between our liking to surrender ourselves by turning within and our liking to continue going out. And so that's as far as the will is concerned. As far as action is concerned, obviously we can't do whatever we want. There are limitations on what we can do, but within certain constraints, we can do what we want to do. If I want to become very rich, I'm free to try to become rich. I can try some business or something or other. I've got that freedom to try, but I've got no freedom to become rich, because if it's not my destiny, if it's my destiny to be poor all my life, however much I want to be rich and however much I try to be rich, it's not going to bear fruit. So we have a limited freedom of action. That is, our Ichcha Svatantra is unlimited. Our Kriya Svatantra is, we have Kriya Svatantra, but it's a limited Kriya Svatantra. We can't achieve what we can't do everything we want to achieve. But then the other freedom that people generally think they have is the freedom of achievement. I want to be rich, and if I try, I will succeed by my will. That Bhagavan says no. You have absolutely no freedom. If you are destined to be rich, you will be rich. Even if you give away all your money, you'll still be rich. Money will come to you somehow or other. If you are destined to be poor, you will be poor whatever you do to become rich. Even if you get money, you'll lose it. So we cannot change what we are destined to experience. But we are free to want to change it, and we're free to try to change it.
The question that I had also is regarding the Vishey Asanas
Yes.
So I was thinking that what is exactly the definition of the Vishey of Asanas? Because we still are in this body, and the body has certain requirements and certain things, and we have to bathe the body, walk the body, feed the body, give it shelter, clothing, and all that stuff.
Yes.
And then the financial aspects of taking care of it, things like that. So what is exactly the definition of? Okay. So, like we always say, we should, reduce our Vishey of Asanas. So where do we draw this line?
Okay. Vasana means an inclination, and Vishaya means, as you know, it means objects or phenomena. Anything other than ourselves is a Vishaya. So our inclination to experience Vishayas, to attend to Vishayas, that is a Vishaya Vasana. That is our likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, and so on, in their subtlest form, in their seed form, of what are called Vishaya Vasanas. Regarding, now we have a body. Firstly, we make the first mistake we make is we take this body to be I or mine. This is my body. I am this body. That's the first mistake we make. And second mistake we make is, because this is my body, I am responsible for taking care of it. Bhagavan says, no, you are not responsible for taking care of it. It is all what the food this body is going to get, the money it's going to get, the shelter it's going to get, the clothing it's going to get. Everything is already determined in prarabdha. If you are destined to go hungry tomorrow, you'll go hungry, whatever effort you make to get food. If you're destined to have 3 meals, you'll have 3 meals. So we can leave the care of this body entirely to God's will, the prarabdha, in other words. We can leave it to Him. Our only concern should be turning our attention within, because that's the only way we can make any difference. We can try to do so many things in terms of actions, but we don't achieve anything thereby, because only what we are destined to experience will experience. We cannot experience anything that we're not destined to experience, and we cannot avoid experiencing anything that we are destined to experience. That's all decided already. So the only useful, effective use we can make of our free will is by turning our attention back within. The more we turn our attention back within, the less we will be concerned about this body. The more as we turn our attention within, as we follow this path Bhagavan has taught us, we are turning our attention back towards the original light. So the mind is thereby being purified and clarified. The more our mind is purified and clarified, the more we will clearly see that this body is not in our hands. What this body is to undergo is not in our hands. We can leave it all to Bhagavan. He will take care of everything. So this is the only useful. Yes, we keep on attending to other things and wasting our energy and our interest on things other than ourselves. But this is all a waste. The only useful use we can make of our interest and our will and our attention is to turn within. By turning within, we are thereby surrendering ourselves completely to Bhagavan. But whether we surrender ourselves or not, what this body and mind are to undergo, they're going to undergo.
That's true. Very true. So, in other words, the Vishaya Vasanas are anything that is not related to
any inclination to be concerned about or interested in or attend to or to experience anything other than yourself. So any inclination towards anything other than yourself is a Vishaya Vasana.
Okay. And my husband has a question.
Yes.
Yes, actually, I have a couple of questions. For one who has totally surrendered to Bhagavan,
yes,
with all directions would come to him from Bhagavan. But for the rest of us, how do we know whether something is Bhagavan's will or the thing is coming out of our own ego? For example, earlier in life, we used to be facing difficult decisions, like whether I should accept this job offer or not, whether we should move to another country, whether we should move to another state. How do we know what is the correct decision to take, whether it's God's will or it is my own ego which is prompting the decision?
Okay, whatever happens is God's will. That is our prarabdha, is God's will. We don't need to know God's will beforehand in order to surrender ourselves. Surrendering ourselves begins with surrendering our will. So long as we have likes and dislikes, we will like certain things that happen to us and dislike certain things that happen to us. So that the very fact that we've got likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, or in their subtlest forms, any Vishaya Vasana, means we are not surrendered. But in order, so we begin by accepting whatever happens. Let anything happen, it's all His will. We try to yield our will to His will. I don't know. I think you probably know Tamil from your name. Bhagavan sings in Śrī Aruṇācala Padigam, verse 2, Ninishtam enishtam. Your will is my will. Imbedaku. That is happiness for me. So we should have no will of our own. Let anything happen, it's all His will. We should be indifferent to things. So long as we've got great concern, or things should go in this way, things should go in this way, it should be good for me, we still haven't surrendered ourselves. So as I say, we don't need to know what His will is, because His will is going to happen anyway. What we have to do is to surrender our will. But if we try to surrender our will, we can only surrender our will to a certain extent. That is, the very nature of ego is to have likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, and so on, to a greater or lesser extent. So we can reduce the intensity of our likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, in other words, our Vishaya Vasanas, but we cannot remove them entirely so long as their root remains. What is the root of all these vasanas, desires, and so on? It is ourself as ego. So the surrender can become complete only when we surrender ourself. That is, we cannot surrender our will entirely without surrendering ourself whose will it is. How do we surrender ourself? By turning our attention back towards ourself. That's why Bhagavan says, Bhagavan gives a very nice explanation of what is real surrender. What does it mean to give ourselves to God? In the 13th paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, what he says is, Anma chintane tavira, vera chintane kalambavadaku, satram idam kodamal, atmanishta paranai iripade, tanne isanaku alipadam. That is, being firmly established as atmanishta paran, or being atmanishta paran, one who is firmly established as oneself, without giving even the slightest room to the rising of any thought other than Atma Chintana. Atma Chintana means self-attentiveness. So the implication is clinging to self-attentiveness so firmly, but we thereby give no room to the rising of any other thought. That is giving ourselves to God. But if we have no other thought, but there are so many things I need to take care of. I need to pay the bills. I need to do this. I need to do that. We think so much depends on us. But so Bhagavan gives us an assurance in the next sentence. Isam peril evelo bharate patalam avalaveyum avabahitu kolkira. However much burden we place on God, He will bear all of it. So even the burden of thinking, we can put that burden on Him. Bhagavan, I don't want to think anymore. I leave it to you to do all my thinking for me. If we have so much determination to cling firmly to self-attentiveness, He will do all the thinking for us. We don't have to bother about whether I should think about this or I should think about that. The only thing we should think about is ourselves. We should cling to self-attentiveness. And then in the next sentence, this is a very, very important sentence, and it answers your question. he says, Sakala Karingalayum or Parameshwara Shakti Nadati Kol Kirapadiyal. Since one Parameshwara Shakti, one supreme ruling power, supreme divine power, is driving all karyas. What does he mean here by all karyas? Everything that needs to happen or ought to happen or to be done, it's all being driven by him. So we can all karyas, everything that should happen or needs to happen or ought to happen or to be done, it's all being driven by him. So when such is the case, instead of namum adaku adangi ramal, instead of we also yielding to it, instead of ourselves yielding ourselves to that power, letting that power take care of everything, Ippadisaya vendum, appadisaya vendum, endru sada chintapadain. Why should we be constantly thinking it's necessary to do like this, it's necessary to do like that? You gave the example when you were young, you had so many decisions to make, whether to do this or whether to do that. You need not have worried about any of those things because the course of your life was already decided by Bhagavan. The fact that you were, so the decisions were already made for you. If that decision was necessary on your part, he would make you decide according to your prarabdha. As he said in his note to his mother, Avarava prarabdha prakaran adakanavan angangirindu artavipan. So whatever we need to do in order to experience our prarabdha, we will be made to do. So we can leave everything, even the thought of whether I should do this or whether I should do that, even that we should leave to him. And then he ends up by giving the analogy of the train. Though we know that the train is going bearing all the burdens, why should we who are traveling in it, instead of remaining happily leaving our luggage placed on it, on the train, why should we suffer carrying it on our head? So being willing to leave the whole burden to him and to cling only to I am, that is surrender. What is his will? Need not concern. He knows what his will is. Why should we know it? We'll know it in course of time. Whatever happens is his will. So let him take care of his will. We have to keep a curb on our will. We have to keep our will in check.
Yes, thank you. I have another question.
Okay.
This is related to COVID. COVID has killed so many million people around the world.
Yes.
And many of them are say, good, well-meaning people.
Yes.
And they have left orphans because in some cases, both parents have died.
Yes.
So when I ask, we are told that this is Ishvara Leela, that this is play of the Lord. Is there a better explanation?
Yes.
Because
this explanation that it's all a play of God is an explanation suitable to people at a certain stage of spiritual maturity. But there is a deeper explanation. According to Bhagavan, this is all a dream. Who is the dreamer? We are the dreamer. Not the person we take ourselves to be. Ishwaram. I mean, I'm not talking about that Ishwara, I'm talking about this Ishwara. Ishwara is not the dreamer. The dreamer is the one who is aware of itself as I am Ishwaran. So that is, in a dream, we always experience ourselves as a person within our dream. That person in our dream is not the dreamer. The dreamer is that which takes that person to be I. So, in other words, ego is the dreamer. So we have, this whole world is our dream. We have created this dream. And so when we are dreaming, there are so many problems. Inevitably, embodied existence problems in an embodied existence are inevitable. Because this body, First, if his body is born, and if it's born, it's going to die. So merely living is dangerous because we know at the end we're going to die. It may be the next moment, it may be after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, who knows? But one day we're going to die. And in the meanwhile, we may get sick, we may have accident, we may be injured. So many things can happen to us. We can get COVID, all sorts of things can happen to us. Whatever happens to us in this life is according to prarabdha. The prarabdha is allotted by Bhagavan for our own benefit. We may not be able to understand, oh, such and such a bad thing has happened to me. How has God allowed this to happen to me? Because we think we can judge what is good for us. We think we know better. If Bhagavan had allowed me to be healthy, if Bhagavan had allowed me to be rich, that would have been better for me. Then I could have spent more time doing self-inquiry instead of having to work hard to earn my livelihood. We may think, but Bhagavan knows what is good for us better than we know. So we need to be willing to accept that whatever happens is happening according to his will. And Bhagavan is God or Guru, by definition, is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-loving. Because he is all-knowing, nothing can happen without his knowledge. Because he's all-powerful, nothing can happen without his consent. And because he is all-loving, nothing that happens can be anything but good for all concerned. It may seem to us, if a small child is orphaned, if both parents die of COVID or by any other means, it seems a great tragedy. But that is that child's destiny for some particular reason. So we cannot judge God's act. What God allows to happen, he knows better than we know what is good for each one of us. So, and moreover, God's aim is not to give us a pleasant life, because if we have a pleasant life, all comforts and conveniences, it's going to come to an end one day anyway. So merely giving us trivial pleasures in this world is not the aim of God. He has one aim and one aim alone, which is to give us infinite happiness. Because he doesn't even want to give us infinite happiness. He wants to reveal to us that infinite happiness is our own real nature. He can't give it to us because it's already ours. But he wants us to see that. So he ordains our prarabdha in such a way that will be most beneficial for our spiritual progress. So whatever is happening in this world is for the spiritual progress of all concerned. Because only when we progress spiritually and eventually come to this path of surrender and surrender ourselves completely to him, can we enjoy the infinite happiness that is our own real nature. Does that adequately answer your question?
Yes, it does answer my question. And I have one more. That all of us have individual words because we have our own mental makeups.
Yes.
Then how is it that we see things in the same, see that relative place? Is it because of the physical, the reality of the world? We are told that the world itself is a dream.
Yes. In dream, you see so many people. And those people all seem to be seeing the same world that you're seeing.
Yeah.
So long as you're dreaming, if you ask anyone in your dream, do you see this red flower? They'll say, yes, of course I see a red flower. And if you go to a philosopher and say, why do we see this red flower? He'll say, of course, because the flower is outside. The flower exists independent of your perception of it. And then you think, oh, yes, of course, this world exists out there, and therefore we're all seeing the same world. Then you wake up, and all your philosophical conclusions come to naught, because you then recognize it was all a mental creation. All those other people who said, yes, we're seeing the same world as you, and yes, we see the same world because it exists out there, all were your own mental fabrication. So long as you're dreaming, it will seem to you that there are other people, and those other people are seeing the same world that you are seeing. That is the nature of a dream.
Okay, I will think about it. Thank you very much.
Right. think about this, but remember the purpose of thinking about this. What ultimately Bhagavan wants us to think about is only I. That all this is pointing back to the need for us to investigate and know what we actually are. That is, if we're now dreaming, then who is it who's dreaming? To whom did this dream appear? To me. Who is this I? The dream exists only in the view of the dreamer. So if we want to know the truth of the dream, we have to know the truth of the dreamer.
Thank you very much.
Right. And then Sanjay.
Yes, sir. Namaskaram, sir. So, you say something to the following effect in your video dated 4/4/2021 at around 34 minutes. Anyone who tries to describe self-investigation, whatever they are describing is not self-investigation. It is a distraction. What we are investigating is ourselves. We are all familiar with the awareness I am. But can you describe it? This is what you are saying. How does it feel to be aware I am? It can't be described. What it is like to be in sleep. Can you describe it? No, you can't. Words can describe limitations. They can describe forms, but they cannot describe formlessness. What we are investigating is that formless awareness. So I am is beyond words and thoughts. This is what you said.
Yes.
Now my question, sir, is this is not fully clear. Yes, we cannot describe pure awareness because it is beyond our mind. But can we not describe the effects of self-investigation? We know that when we practice keen self-investigation, we do experience an increased clarity of self-awareness, happiness and stillness. And we can put these into words. Though it may not be the final state of attainment, however, we do experience these things in a greater measure as a result of self-investigation. So how can we say we cannot describe self-investigation? Could you please clarify, sir?
Okay. Whatever we may experience, you say clarity of self-awareness, peace, happiness, all these things. Anything that appears is not real. What we are trying to investigate is what is ever present. That is I am. The real nature of I am, yes, it is said, but that is the real nature of I am is infinite happiness, infinite clarity, infinite peace. That's all that can be said in words, but that is not, those words are merely pointers. They're not actually describing it. What we are trying to investigate is only I. Who am I? What is this I? I, as I said there, it is not something that we can describe. Can you describe what it is? We are all aware I am, but can we describe what it is? Can you describe the awareness I am? No, we can't. There are no words can adequately describe it. There's a reason for this. In Sanskrit, there's a nice word for which there's no adequate equivalent in English. The Sanskrit word is Vishey. Vishey means what has distinguishing features. Brahman, or our real nature, is nirvishesha. It has no distinguishing features. So I am is nirvishesha. So we are investigating that which has no distinguishing features. Anything that has distinguishing features, we can describe those features, or at least try to describe those features in words. But we are trying to investigate that which has no distinguishing features. That is that fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am. It is true, when we try to investigate ourselves, to the extent that ego subsides, to the extent that we attend to ourselves, ego subsides. To the extent that ego subsides, we experience peace, happiness, and we also experience a clarity of self-awareness. But whatever we experience, we shouldn't stop with that. Who is it who experiences this? To whom is this clarity? To whom is this peace? To whom is this happiness? We need to be going deeper and deeper and deeper within. Otherwise, if we say, "Oh, now my self-investigation is very successful because I'm experiencing greater peace, I'm experiencing greater happiness," we are getting stuck. We're not go. We need to be going deeper and deeper. So whatever may be experienced along the way, some people even have divine visions. All sorts of things can happen, but anything that is Vishesha, anything that appears and disappears, anything that is newly experienced, anything other than what is ever shining, as I am, is a distraction. We need to be attending more and more and more keenly to I am. So the reason I said that is there are some people, if you look on the internet, there are some people who describe what they experience when practicing self-investigation. It was for the sake of such people. We shouldn't try to describe anything we experience while practicing self-investigation. We shouldn't attach any importance whatsoever to what we experience, because the purpose of self-investigation is not to have an experience. We are seeking to know the reality of the experiencer. All experiences are for the experiencer. That is only the experiencer who experiences experiences. So that experiencer is ego. So long as there's any experience of anything other than ourselves, it is a distraction. So we need to go deeper and deeper and deeper within. If we think after, supposing we sit for 10 minutes okay, I'm going to sit, and for 10 minutes I'm going to attend to myself. And we are fairly successful because we're able to curb the inclination to follow the asanas, and we're able to keep the mind in check to a certain extent. We feel a certain peace, and we may feel, "Oh, that was a successful meditation session." But the very fact that we are judging it is successful or not so successful, we are still allowing our mind to dwell on things other than ourselves. Our sole aim should be to attend to ourselves, and to attend to ourselves ever more deeply and keenly. Anything else is just a distraction. Or I sat in meditation for 20 minutes, I didn't have any thoughts, people say, as if it's a big achievement. But who is the I who didn't have any thought? That I, according to Bhagavan, is ego, which is itself a thought. And that I cannot stand without clinging to other thoughts. So even the idea, I was without thoughts for 20 minutes, is itself a thought. But 20 minutes are themselves thought. Everything other than I am is a thought. So anything that can be described in words is a thought. So we need to go deeper and deeper within. So whatever we may experience, whatever may appear as we're practicing this, to whom does it appear? To me. Who is the experiencer of this? I am. We need to turn deeper and deeper and deeper within. So trying to describe our experiences, or taking interest in what have you experienced when you practice self-investigation. If you tell me what you experienced, then I'll think, "Oh, I haven't experienced that." Then I must start looking for that experience. Or I don't experience peace when I practice self-investigation. Then something is lacking. Then I must look for this peace. Instead of looking for myself, I'm now looking for peace.
Got it.
As Bhagavan says, Nindrida Sendrida Ninevindra, let them appear or let them not appear. So let peace appear, let 1,000 thoughts appear. What does it matter? My only concern is, to whom does all this appear? Cling to myself. That we should have such singleness of purpose, such one-pointedness in our practice. So any taking interest in descriptions of self-investigation is allowing our mind to be distracted by things other than ourselves. Anything that can be described is something other than ourselves. So that is not self-investigation. Self-investigation is attending only to ourselves and nothing else. Does that adequately answer that?
That does adequately answer. That was quite helpful. So the one thing I have learned is we should not discuss our experiences. Somebody asks about an experience, that is not relevant.
Not only we shouldn't discuss it with others, we shouldn't think about it. The only thing we should be thinking about is who am I? That we should not the question who am I. We should be thinking, what is this I? That we should be turning our attention back to investigate this I.
That's one. And one more question I have, sir. We had a talk some days back, and you, I think, no, it was not in a talk. It was in one of your videos. You said that when you go for a walk, your self-attentiveness is generally much deeper than it's in the entire day. So this I was curious, like how can I do it? Because I'm not able to do it, because I also go for a walk. But at that time, I'm thinking of so many things.
No, that was, I said that in a particular context. That is, someone asked me how you're able to practice self-attentiveness when you're so busy doing so many things, answering people's questions and making videos and replying to emails and everything. What I said is, the activities of the body, that is all whatever we are to do, whatever work this body and mind are to do is determined by prarabdha. So, but whatever we may be experiencing, we are always aware I am. So when we are, even if we are doing mental work, we should be trying to hold on to that I am. And I also said that because my work, a lot of my work is concerned with answering questions like this, talking about Bhagavan's teachings or answering questions about Bhagavan's teachings is very helpful, because Bhagavan's teachings are all pointing in which direction? They're pointing only towards I. So it's a good reminder to attend to I. As far as, but because a lot of my day is spent answering questions, whether by email or by telephone or by YouTube or WhatsApp or whatever, or I mean, it's Zoom or WhatsApp or whatever. A lot of my, and there are of course other things. So long as we've got a body, so many commitments come in one form or another. So the body and mind are active in one way or another. I said, for me, the time when I go for a walk is a time when relatively my mind is free of other activities. So it's a favorable time for self-attentiveness. That doesn't mean I always make use of that, because I still have Vishey of Asanas. My mind still tends to go out after other things, but it's a favorable time. But it's not the only favorable time. We need to try to take advantage of every favorable moment. Not only the favorable moment, even the unfavorable moments, we need to try to be attending to ourselves.
Got it, sir. Got it, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. And then Srini.
Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Good morning.
Yes.
Thank you for all the teachings I've been hearing from you, and it always feels like you are on from Ramana's, and whenever I hear that voice from you, and it always answers my questions, that current question, whatever I'm seeking in. It feels like I don't know why or how, but it just comes from my heart. It's not just like praising you or praising Bhagavan. Yeah. The question I have today is, along with Bhagavan's teachings, what else I can seek from external world, like Guru or you or someone from physical beings, who can push me more towards inward. it is sometimes I feel like when I see my kids, they're just too young, like 2 and 6. What else I can teach them to turn more inwards? Because it's even myself, I came to all this 40 years of life, and it got distracted away from the source, and it's like you're too far away from the self, and you're trying to go back. It seems like it's taking ages. I wish there is a person like you or Bhagavan who I have from the day one, where I can always hang on to Bhagavan and doesn't go from my source. That way, it is like all this nonsense doesn't come into the mind, or all this journey doesn't go far away from mind, so that it always be very pristine or very pure self shining. I can realize it. I can realize it sooner. It's kind of like a lot of things are from the external teachings or other teachings. I wish there is only one teaching called self-enquiry or Bhagavan, and just that's the only thing that we needed the whole world. And like ABCD, this is the only thing that needed for everybody, not like XYZ or not like something else, and get diluted or get diverted from all the self-enquiry. Thank you.
Bhagavan's teachings are all we need. Bhagavan's teachings are consistently directing us back towards ourselves. So the only help we need, the only external help we need, are Bhagavan's teachings, in my experience. However, not everyone is attracted to Bhagavan's teachings, because that is why there are so many different levels of spiritual teaching, so many different types of spiritual teaching. They're suited to people of different stages of spiritual development. If we've been attracted to Bhagavan, we are very fortunate, because this is the final leg of the journey home.
Yeah,
so
I feel that. Yeah.
So if we have been attracted to Bhagavan, that is sufficient. Regarding others, for example, our children, we cannot. It's up to Bhagavan whether he's going to attract them to his path or not. If they're ready for it, they will be attracted. They are fortunate that they are born into a family of someone who is already a Ramana Bhakta. And you will tell them about Bhagavan's teachings and everything. They may or may not be attracted. Obviously, you can't force it on them. They may be much more interested in earning money in the world or having a successful career or something. If that is so, then that is the level they're at. Or sometimes they may be attracted to, some people are attracted to other types of spiritual or other religions or spiritual practices. Bhagavan has placed them in your care now. You do the best you can for them, but ultimately they're not your children. They're placed in your care for the time being. Now they seem to be very small, but very, very quickly the years will go by, and they'll soon be teenagers, very rebellious with ideas of their own. They won't agree with you. They'll think you're a stupid old man. He doesn't know anything. What does he know of life?
I can see it already. I can already see it now. I can see it very clearly what's going to happen. Yeah.
So we have to let them grow up in their own way. We do what we can for them, but everything else we leave to Bhagavan.
So is it something that I can teach them? Because every day I can always
You can only teach them to the extent they're interested. You can try to make it interesting. Try to make it in a way that will tweak their curiosity.
Their level.
Yes,
their level. And
but if you find they're not interested, no point in forcing it, because Bhagavan's teachings cannot be forced on anyone. Those who are ready to be attracted by them will automatically be attracted by them.
Okay.
So remember, they're not your children, they're Bhagavan's children.
Yeah, yeah. I always tell everyone in
Yeah.
my circle,
Yeah.
just because they are born from mother's, like my wife's womb, I don't take credit of like, oh, they are attached to me and I'm the whole. I have rights to do whatever I want to do it. It just like happened to be they decided to be in my family.
Yeah.
It just like happened to be like we are blessed with that kind of thing, and that's it. That's the only thing that I have, and they are the gurus for me. They are like Ramana for me.
Yes.
And I always see that they are in the purest form so far. At least when their second one is two, they're in the purest form.
Yes.
But I wish they can be the pure forever, but they won't be. With
They
all
won't
the
be.
social.
Someone once asked Bhagavan, why do we find children so adorable? Bhagavan said, because they haven't yet sprouted their horns.
Yeah, I see
these cute little children, they will all sprout their horns sooner or later. Sprouting their horns means the Vishey of Asanas will manifest, and
it's kind of like more of circle where I see them pure, I get them impure, and they look for purity towards the end. Like, and when they go to 60s, 80s, and towards the end of that, they realize that all these 60 years of 70 whole life, they've been thinking the all outside pleasures. They come back to inside. That is kind of like you waste a whole life. It kind of feels like why unnecessarily going outward
nothing is wasted
whole 100 years, come back to self.
Nothing is wasted because whatever happens in our life is happening, that is, it's all according to his will. So even the time that seems to be wasted on worldly pursuits, we undergo those experiences for a purpose, and sooner or later will be drawn back to ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right.
Yeah. my kids are giving a hard time.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're always. I always feel blessed to be part of your satsang, Michael. It feels so much.
I am not Sat. I am Asat. Michael is Asat. I am alone is Sat. So cling to I am.
I see.
Don't worry
I don't
about
see
Michael. Michael is just
I see. Bhakta Ramana's Sishya. Or it is. It feels like he always reminds me like how a true Bhakta should be. I just sometimes I just follow your guidelines so literally. Thank you so much for all the work.
It's easy to see others as being very good bhaktas because we only see our own Vishey of Asanas, our own impurities. We see very clearly. We don't see the impurities of others. So we each know how imperfect we are. So
thank you, Ramana. Yeah.
We will be true devotees of Bhagavan only when we're swallowed by him.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Lord. Yeah.
Right.
The question, and this is the last one, but I think it's really been answered. But anyway, can you please consider this as my new question? And it says, Atma Vichara needs some effort from the practitioner to constantly turn the mind inwards. How can we practice this in daily life while at work when the mind is constantly churning with work thoughts? I think this has been answered.
I can just briefly answer that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I give an analogy to answer that. Supposing a very dear friend or relative is critically ill in hospital, whether because of an accident or some illness or something. Maybe they got COVID and they're in the intensive care unit. And nobody knows whether they're going to pull through or not. The doctors are doing their best for them, but only time will tell. How much we will be thinking of that friend because of our love for them. We'll be constantly thinking of them. Even when we're in the midst of other work, the thought of that friend will be constantly coming to our mind. like if we had so much concern to know who am I, as we have for our friend, even in the midst of our other activities, even when our mind is engaged in other activities, that remembrance of I am will constantly be coming to our mind. So it's all a matter of what we're interested in. If we're passionately interested in something, that will be occupying our mind much of the day because of our passionate interest in it. So if our friend is seriously ill in hospital with COVID, we'll be passionately interested in their welfare, concerned for their welfare. So that the thought of our friend will be constantly coming to our mind. So if we have so much passionate concern, so much passionate interest in knowing who am I, this self-investigation will automatically be going on, even in the midst of other activities. Because what is self-investigation? It's simply turning our attention towards I. So every time we remember I am, our attention is being turned towards I. It's not necessary, but we should be for a long duration. It's more than the long duration of self-attentiveness, it's the intensity with which we attend to ourselves. How deep do we go within? In the midst of our activities, that may not be possible, but at least if there's some slight remembrance, that is good. At other times when our mind is not engaged in other activities, we can go within deeper. So it's all, as Bhagavan said, Bhakti is the mother of jnana. Bhakti means love. So if we have that love, we will be attending to ourselves, whatever else may be happening. I hope that adequately answers that question.
I think there's one from Elena now.
Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Hello. I would like to ask this question. Today we were talking about self-surrender, and also here we also, with my husband, we were discussing this question, and somehow, maybe I will not put it quite properly, this question, but the idea, path of self-investigation means that we have to fix our attention on I thought. And self-surrender means that we have to withdraw our attention from all objects and fix it on the self. First, I wanted to ask how, for example, what this self means in surrender. Is it I am?
Yes, there is only one I. Whether we call it I thought or we call it our real nature or whatever, it is one I. When that one I is in its pristine state, that is when it's devoid of any adjuncts, that is our real nature. When it's mixed with adjuncts, we call it ego or I thought or whatever. But it's only one I. Whether in self-investigation, we are trying to investigate who is this I. We are trying to attend to this I. Or sometimes Bhagavan expressed it in different ways, but it's all pointing at the same thing. Sometimes he said we have to investigate the place from which I rises. What is the place from which I rises? Only from I am, only from ourselves. I can't rise from anything anywhere other than ourselves. So they're all, however Bhagavan expressed it, they're all just different pointers pointing at the same thing, pointing at ourselves. In self-surrender, to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, we attend just to I am, we are thereby withdrawing our attention to other things, so we are letting go of other things. Not only are we letting go of other things, by clinging to I am, we are thereby bringing about the subsidence of ego. That subsidence of ego is self-surrender. So whether ultimately self-surrender and self-investigation are one and the same thing. We cannot investigate ourselves without thereby surrendering ourselves. And we cannot go deep in the practice of self-investigation, into self-surrender, without investigating ourselves.
Right. But I
There's
wanted
just
to
two different
know.
ways of explaining the
Yes.
same thing ultimately.
Yes, it seems so. But for example, self-surrender also means first, and Bhagavan also gave this this as practice that has to be done before complete self-surrender. It's devotional practices. I mean, these practices maintain relationship between us and God in some form. It's like, as I understand, it's like purifying mind first, and then it comes this fixing whole attention on the self. I mean that how I just wonder how this happens. Changing. I mean, changing. First, we, for example, have some relationship with God, and then we fix our attention on the self. What is this self? Because God is God. I mean, it's like some object. How? Yes, how it changes.
Yeah, that is, the path of surrender begins in the path of bhakti. Well, I mean, it is the path of bhakti, but it begins. Surrender begins even at the stage where we still take God to be something other than ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
The more we give ourselves to God, the more we cannot give ourselves to God. So long as we take God to be other than ourselves, we can try to surrender our will to the will of God. So whatever, your will is my will. That itself is happiness, as Bhagavan says in Nāṉ Ār Padigam. So we try to surrender ourselves, we try to surrender our will to the will of God. But the deeper we go in this practice, the more our mind is purified, and the more we begin to recognize that God, that is, there is only God, there's no me, there's only God. When we recognize that God is the only thing, then who am I? I cannot be anything other than God. That means God is nothing. This I is nothing but God. So we slowly, by the purification of the mind in one way or other, we begin to recognize, we become willing to accept that God is nothing other than our own real nature. What we actually are is God. We don't exist, only God exists.
Yes, right.
So what you call the self means our real nature, what we actually are. That is what is in the Bhakti Marga is called God. That God is nothing other than ourselves.
Yes, thank you very much, Mike, because this is a very important thing that you again said, that there is a process of purification of our mind, actually. So now we cannot, now these questions appear that how it's possible having a relationship with God and then you fix your attention on the self, which is God, how it's possible having this relationship. But it's possible when mind is purified to the certain extent.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also, but you released this very beautiful video about Sadhu Om's sons, and again we can see that and Sadhu Om and Muruganar and Bhagavan, they had this relationship with higher power, even Bhagavan with Aruṇācala, for example. So I mean this devotional something was constantly going on. I mean, I wanted to ask, does it mean that it is actually necessary to maintain this? Because even you constantly mention, and I love it very much, that give everything to Bhagavan. We constantly remember about Bhagavan, we mention Bhagavan, so we still have this devotional, maintain this relationship. And we know these beautiful prayers from these higher creatures that they also they took place.
Yeah.
So I mean that it is something that is necessary, it seems.
Yes, but the thing is, so long as we are still following the spiritual path, so long as until ego is annihilated, we are trying to turn within. But because we still have Vishey Asanas, our attention is much of the time, our attention is going out towards other things.
Yes.
God is that which is shining in our heart's eye. That is why, with love, we try to turn within to attend to Him. But when our attention comes outwards, we seem to be this person, this body. And as this body, we seem to be something separate from God. That is, now I experience myself, because I take this body to me myself, I am limited in time, in space, I'm limited in so many ways. I am this, I am not that. We are limited, we are separate from all other things, because we just confined within this body. So this confined I, that is the ego is not God. That is, so long as we experience ourselves as a person, we are not experiencing ourselves as God. So God seems to be something other than ourselves.
Yes.
So long as our attention is facing outwards, it's appropriate to worship God in name and form. Because when our mind is going out towards names and forms, taking a particular name and form, the name and form of Bhagavan, for example, taking that to be God is beneficial for us, because what does that form tell us? Turn within.
Yes.
I am that which is within you. So there is no contradiction between Anya Bhakti and Ananya Bhakti. So long as we know our aim is Ananya Bhakti, the Ananya Bhakti means love for God as not other than ourselves. That is our aim. In order to cultivate that love for God as not other than ourselves, the love for God as other than ourselves can be very great aid and support.
Yes. But interesting, thank you very much, Michael. Yes, I agree with you. It seems that as long as our minds are not purified enough, we have to, I mean, it's very beautiful, it's good, it's very good to have this relationship. I mean, Because Bhagavan is himself is something that constantly reminds us to turn within. Yes. So, but maybe please maybe repeat. Maybe you mentioned it somewhere. Why Bhagavan himself was doing this? I mean, praising Aruṇācala and Aruṇācala mostly, of course. So why he was doing this?
We can explain it in two ways. One way is, we can say the whole of Bhagavan's life had a divine purpose. Whatever Bhagavan did, it was all teaching. So it was for our benefit. Bhagavan taught this path of Anya Bhakti through Aruṇācala Stuti Panchakam, by worshipping Aruṇācala. But if you see Aruṇācala Stuti Panchakam, the Anya Bhakti and the Ananya Bhakti are so beautifully interwoven. There are so many verses that you can interpret it. Bhagavan is addressing this name and form of the hill. He's also addressing that which is shining in us as eye, because they are one and the same. That's one way of explaining it. Another way of explaining it is, so long as the body and mind still seem to exist, though the ego has been annihilated, in our view, that body and mind seem to exist. So the same inclinations that were there before the annihilation of the ego seem to continue, but the important word is seem to, because it's Bhagavan is not aware of a body and mind. It's in our view that Bhagavan is a body and mind. So that body and mind seems to have the same inclinations to devotion, but was there before the ego was annihilated.
Yes, it's interesting. Yes, but it is beautiful, of course. Anyway, and yes, you are correct that everything that Bhagavan was doing, it's divine and teachings.
One thing nobody can deny is Bhagavan's great love for Aruṇācala.
Yes, of course.
That is, Bhagavan used to look out of the a window of a hall that in beside his sofa there was a window looked out and Aruṇācala could be seen. And Bhagavan would often look out, and there was so much love in his eyes whenever he looked towards Aruṇācala. And at the last moment, when Bhagavan, shortly before Bhagavan's body breathed its last, devotees started to sing Aksharam. And as soon as they started singing Aruṇācala Shiva, Aruṇācala Shiva, Bhagavan's eyes opened and tears were rolling, but the tears were coming from the outer corner of his eyes, which is said to be a sign of tears of bliss. That is, Bhagavan had so much love for Aruṇācala up to the end, when the body was in so much pain and everything, that love was for Bhagavan, that love for Aruṇācala was all-consuming. So nobody can deny, but Bhagavan had love for that name and form Aruṇācala. So when Bhagavan had so much love for that name and form, we are perfectly justified in having so much love for his name and form. Well, for us, both Aruṇācala and Bhagavan, because they're one and the same.
Right. So thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All thanks to Bhagavan.
All thanks to Bhagavan. Right. Thank you.
And Ash, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thanks, Michael, for taking my question. It's a quick one. I know we're getting, it's been nearly 4 hours since we've started. So we are not able to cling to the sense I am for too long because of our love for other things.
Yeah.
We are told that continued attempts to practice self-investigation is of itself sufficient to increase our love for self and decrease our love for non-self, and that will help over time to turn to the 180 degrees needed.
Yes.
That is very comforting. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, that is, we can do only what is possible. So long as we've got strong Vishey Asanas, as most of us have, we cannot be attending to ourselves all the time, because we cannot avoid sometimes succumbing to our Vishey Asanas. But even though we succumb to our Vishey Asanas, we can still try again and again. However many times our attention gets pulled away from ourselves, we can gently, slowly cajole it back. Try to attend to ourselves a little bit here, a little bit there. So it's when a child is learning to walk, it first takes baby steps. Later on, that child may be an Olympic runner, but even the greatest Olympic runners, the fastest runners in the world, when they started, they were little toddlers taking small baby steps. So we are like that. We may be still just taking baby steps, but if that Olympic runner hadn't made those baby steps, it would never have become an Olympic runner. So we all have to start from where we are. Bhagavan isn't asking us to do anything more than we're capable of doing. So he encourages us to attend to ourselves. Let us attend to ourselves as much as we can. And if we find that we don't have sufficient love to do it more, we can at least do a little. But if it's not sufficient, then let us think about his teachings, let us dwell on them, and because his teachings are constantly encouraging us to try. And that's all that's necessary. It's not necessary to succeed. If we try, that is sufficient. Because if we try, success is guaranteed. Not immediately, it may take time, but all that Bhagavan has asked us to do, try to attend to yourself. So if we try, that's all that is necessary. And now our attempts may seem very feeble and very little and very inadequate, but this is a snowballing process. Once the snowball has started to roll down the hill, it will pick up more snow as it goes along. It will become heavier and heavier and go faster and faster.
Yeah, it's like
that's why Sadhu used to tell the story I've often told. You're probably familiar with it, of the camel's nose. We should allow the camel's nose into the tent. Have you heard that story?
Yeah, very true. And also, he also said something else in the path of Sri Ramana, where he says, it's like a ball going down the stairs, right? So the first time it hits, it comes slightly up, then it goes on the lower stair, it comes even higher.
Yes, yeah.
Successive rolling down of the ball on the stair
gains
brings it up even
momentum.
higher.
Yeah, that's another analogy parallel to the snowball analogy.
Yeah,
I
very
mean,
true, very
it,
true.
it implies the same thing.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much.
Okay, pleasure, pleasure.